Hello, everyone. My name is Anisha Goods.
I'm Tyler Ratcliffe.
Unica McDougal.
Dylan Stocks.
Jeremiah McLeod.
And this is our film presentation on the movie Boys Don't Cry. So before we begin our actual presentation, we'd just like to give you guys a little trailer about what the movie was about and to better understand the themes that we're going to be speaking on.
Major themes. The first major theme in the movie that relates to our course is gender socialization. Gender socialization usually occurs during early childhood, and it refers to the teaching and reinforcement of behaviors by society that are considered norms for a particular gender. Behaviors that are considered to be the norm for males include assertiveness, confidence, aggressiveness, toughness, and a willingness to become violent.
In the movie Boys Don't Cry, there were two recurring themes throughout the film. One of the recurring themes was sexual violence, and another was sexual identity. And talking about sexual violence a little bit more, Brandon Tina experienced one of the most traumatic sexual violence moments throughout the climax of the movie. We saw how John Lauder and Tom Neeson assaulted him, and it put him in a position to where he felt that he was really hesitant about reporting to the authorities. As I thought about this, I was thinking about Module 6, where we discuss victim blaming. And victim blaming occurs when the victim of a crime is held entirely or partially responsible for the harm that befell them. Brandon Tina experienced victim blaming in the film because he struggled whether or not he wanted to report this sexual violent act to the authorities. Also, in Module 4, in discussing a little bit more about sexual identity, I thought that Brandon Tina had a hard time discussing his sexual identity. He thought it was really confusing in which he could not express to his newfound friends. And as I opened up Module 4, I thought about the 50 Shades of Gay TED Talk, where the speaker addressed how people of the LGBTQ community can really draw the line between being 100% gay or straight. So at that point, it really goes to show that it's not a yes or no answer. It's freedom. It's a freedom of expression.
A theme of social constructs in the family is a subtle theme throughout the movie, but I feel that is important because it influences a lot of main characters' perspectives on Brandon's identity. I could say that because at the beginning of the movie, Brandon Tina was always seen in an argument with, or usually seen with, in an argument with his cousin, and he was always bashing or degrading her, in like numerous ways. and this could have encouraged a bunch of the behaviors and risky behaviors that Brandon was seen doing or acting throughout the rest of the movie. And the characters John and Tom, I think that the family and the community perspective had a lot to do with their perspective and the way that they approach or their actualization of Brandon's biological identity. Because, and I think structural functionalism describes their perspective because it assumes that people are born with traditional roles that are prescribed to them because of their biological, um, because of the biological reasoning for it, and that there's no changing it.
What scenes resonate with you? Brandon and Lena make plans to leave Memphis during a date which lead to their first sexual act. Brandon is raped by Tom and John violently in the car and also in the bathroom as they realize that she is born a female.
Also, um, at the very beginning, when Brandon's cousin was arguing with him, and after Brandon had left the skating ring and was coming back, well, the scene after leaving the skating ring, uh, he was being chased by a bunch of other males who were calling him a bunch of derogatory, hurtful, and insulting names as he was like cowering into his cousin's apartment or home.
Do women suffer from oppression in the movie? Brandon was suffering from acceptance because of him being wanting to have society being accepted by him, such as Tom and John. Also, humiliation by forcing Brandon to take his clothes off and exposing his genitals.
Also, in the beginning of the movie, in the bar, you could also see it a little small bit of it in the trailer when Brandon was defending um, another woman at the bar from a man who was uh, talking with her, but before you could see that he had just approached her and assumed that she would conform to his requests, and it could be come off as him pressuring her. Um, Also, a lot of derogatory language was used throughout the film, and like to women, and like they were referred to as like skank, freak, and stuff like that. So
How are the women in the field presented? As I thought about the movie Boys Don't Cry and the different women that we were introduced to, I also considered characteristics such as fearful, judgmental, alone, heartless, and sidekicks. I felt that the women, Lana in particular, was fearful of change. She knew there was something different about Brandon Tina, whether it was Brandon being a nice, sensitive guy, but she was also fearful of the fact that she did not want to go against what she already believed in, traditional. She was scared that he might have been too good for her, so she was really hesitant about moving away. Also, what I considered about the women in this film were their health. And I know we do a module 7 on women's health, and I consider that because most of the women in this film, they were substance abusers, such as they were either drinking booze all the time or they were smoking cigarettes. And I kind of thought about the article on women and addiction and kind of took that into account as I was dissecting each character, each woman within the film.
How are men characterized in the film? In the film, men are characterized as jealous, cruel, violent, caring before Brandon was exposed, rowdy, and tough. Some of these behaviors are shown very frequently, one of those things being violence. The most outstanding scene that shows probably the most violence from this film is the rape scene in which John and Tom attack and rape Brandon after finding out his birth sex.
Stereotypes. Brandon portrays the masculine role of being the dominant. He makes Lana feel as if he is in charge as he asserts himself as such when they are engaged in sexual behavior. So Brandon, he's also constructive vision of how men look and how they act. And also Brandon is illustrating the common practice of heterosexual where men take in charge. Lena is very submissive and in traditional roles as a woman. Also, John, he's more aggressive. He wants to be the head of the household, the traditional roles, when he returns from prison.
There are a few instances of gender-based violence, and I think the most prevalent one is when John and Tom uh, uh, find out Brandon's biological sex, and because it was opposing the traditional roles and beliefs of the community and the family, uh, they engaged in what could be coined or what is coined as corrective rape, like treating uh, Brandon's identity or express identity as a punishment. They punished him for the way he was being expressed, and that is why it's coined corrective rape.
So here's just a quick clip of the rape scene just to give you a visual of what it means to go through gender-based violence. So our biggest takeaway from doing this project was focused mainly on individuality and people who are transgender or experiencing going through the LGBT community. Um, Basically, them having a way of expressing themselves freely without fear of judgment or cruelty, which happened a lot throughout this film. Also, the fact that in this movie you see a lot of male and female gender roles in the traditional sense. Members of the LGBT community are still going through a lot of cruelty and violence, even with the passage of same sex marriage and the promotion for social justice and equality for all. Although we are now in 2017, where some of these things would be more accepting than they were back when this film was created, many members of this community still experience the same violence, the same derogatory behavior and suggestions that Brandon Tina experienced herself. So we would like to just thank you guys for listening to our presentation, and we hope you had a great semester.